I never knew an octopus was so amazing until we started researching this book.
This is the thing that blows my mind. In 5 years, every person in your organization, they might not be managing a single person, but they might be managing 1,000 bots, 1,000 processes. That complexity is only trusted to senior managers today.
Look, one thing I think is certain is that the technology is going to get better at a much faster rate than the organizations are getting better at using the technology. And that disparity is just going to increase, right? Technology increases at this exponential rate, and organizations are at a very linear rate.
In the next year, it's likely, looking at the trends, that AI will be better than your average human at doing this work. What does it mean to have an intern plus AI who's significantly smarter than Einstein? My name's Jonathan Brill. I'm a business futurist.
I'm Steve Wunker. I'm an innovation expert. So, Jonathan, what's in this book?
We wrote AI in the Octopus organization to help leaders think through how they reorganize their way of work to take advantage of artificial intelligence. Because the reality is, this isn't primarily a technological change, it's a sociological change.
That's right. AI is transformative to the economy, it's transformative to companies, and it's transformative for careers. This book takes you inside to show you just how that transformation is happening right now and what you can do to be ready for the future and also to act on the opportunity that's here today.
This is the first project that's had millions of managers that we've worked with through survey data. We've interviewed hundreds of executives, over 50 thought leaders, academics in the business community, to understand really what is happening next. And we'd love to share that with you. So, Steve, what's this octopus thing about?
I never knew an octopus was so amazing until we started researching this book. It is not only a hyper adaptable creature, which is why we first started looking at it, because it has this ability to not even rely on its DNA, but recode its RNA, so immediately it can just transform what it is and what it's capable of. But it has this set of 9 brains. I mean, it's almost unfathomable for us to think 9 brains. And it's a wonderful analogy for how AI works with distributed intelligence around an organization. What's even more amazing is that the brain in one arm can coordinate with the brain in another arm without involving the central brain. So it can be doing 2 totally different things at the same time. You don't need to focus on the clam, focus on the cave, focus on the shark. No, you can do everything all at once, which in an AI age, when things are moving at hyper speed, you need to do.
You need to move faster than you can tell people what to do. And so you need to be able to trust people to do things in a coordinated way without traditional top-down coordination. And this is the power of this idea of the octopus, the distributed mind. The way we've worked for the last 150, 170 years is built on the great man thesis, that there's a big brain at the top and the neural structure tells everything else what to do. It's tops down. In the world we're talking about, it has to be, by definition, bottoms up to be agile enough. And so it's all about the tentacles going out on their own, exploring, creating, discovering, reporting back not what they're going to do, but what they have just done.
The irony of this book is that we need that for the AI economy, but then AI also enables it to happen.
Yes.
It's a happy irony for once.
Yes, that's what do they call it? The self-licking ice cream cone?
That's right. So, we love the octopus because it is a model of so much that an AI organization can do and should do, right? It's an emotional creature. And heaven knows we need emotion as we bring AI into workplaces and transform the way work is done. But, one reason I really love the octopus as well is because it's so alien. It forces us to think of a totally different way of doing things. A great fallacy we see companies having right now is that they just sort of sprinkle AI on top of what they're doing, and it's AI-ified.
Yeah.
And okay, that's neat, but that doesn't live up nearly to the potential of what you can do.
Right. And there was a paper recently that came out, and it's had some methodological issues. But what it said and what got highlighted was that 95% of AI projects fail. But when you dig into why, it is because companies aren't making the process changes to take advantage of the tools.
Right.
They're just trying to salt and pepper the dish. This is a new way of cooking.
That's right. And so it is about not just the new features you might have, not just making what you currently do more efficient, but transforming what you do and transforming how what you do interacts with a totally different part of the organization, perhaps, or somebody in a different company. It transforms the business model. There's so much that can be done. We need a creature like an octopus with its 9 brains, its 3 hearts, its completely alien seeming biology to teach us, oh, there's a totally different way of being here.
Tell me about those 3 hearts.
It's pretty freaky, right? But it uses different hearts for different purposes.
Okay.
And so we have a chapter that is on the different hearts an organization has to use. There's the analytic heart, and most organizations are really good at that. And then there's the agile heart, where you have to be sort of entrepreneurial and exploratory. And then there's that aligned heart that looks at culture and emotion, all of the softer side of things, which is easy just to sort of wave away, saying that's going to just happen. No, it won't. You really need to think proactively about how that's going to be managed as well.
We did research with over 2 million managers. We interviewed 50 of the world's leading business experts. We've interviewed hundreds over the last couple of years of CEOs, senior leaders in organizations to understand how you do this. Why is it that some managers are dramatically more effective in times of change and times of disruption than others? And what blows me away is that there are really just 4 characteristics. Just 4 things you can do in your family, in your business, your community, your life today to figure out, to align on what happens next. And if you do those, the quality, the performance, the feeling of well-being within your organization all go up at the same time. And it comes down to things that are like obvious when you talk to organizational psychologists, but we don't do. We've been talking about these things for 25 years in the research literature, and we haven't done them because we haven't had to change the way we work. To compete in this new world, you do. And it comes down to 4 simple things, right? How you leverage help. It turns out that strategically lucky leaders, leaders that are lucky not by chance, but disproportionately successful under uncertainty, ask for a lot more help from their peers than their peers. So the question as a manager is, okay, how do I create a culture where people are able to ask for help when they feel the most at risk? It's a real challenge, but it comes down to listening, supporting, being really clear about the risk bands, how much and how little risk you expect people to take. If you don't do both of those, people don't know where they're playing. And you have to protect them to the mat if they are within those risk bands. That's how you get innovation. That's how you turn lambs into lions. The second piece is unexpected connections. That leaders who are successful in times of change have broader socioeconomic groups that they're a part of. They have broader connections across industries. As a result, they have more people to call, more ways of looking at things, more ways of getting out of challenges, more favors that they can ask. And as a result of leveraging help and unexpected connections, they dramatically increase their potential. They make new things possible. They make things that they're honestly often not ready for possible. And so they find themselves often in what a traditional risk manager would consider chaos. And so they need to find new ways to get out of it. Standard operating procedures. They work in standard operating situations. But they're exactly the things that can kill you when the world changes. And so these leaders, they look at the world from first principles. What are the dangers? What are the risks? Right? What are the challenges? Why might this shift the organization? We were talking about the importance of AI as a mentor. Well, you can game this out with artificial intelligence in a way that's safe. You can ask for help in a way that's safe from AI instead of maybe a person before you know what you're really asking for. When you leverage help and unexpected connections, when you control chaos, you're able to walk into almost any situation comfortable. You're going to be able to walk out of it. And so, what I think we need to do is build these competencies within our organization, build the psychological safety, get people asking for help, make that a KPI, right? Get people talking to people outside of their office in this world of Zoom meetings. It is way too easy to get in the bubble and stay in the bubble. Make having conversations with customers, going to events, going to conferences, doing things outside of the office a part of the business. I know it's easy to say, no, 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 no. Our efficiency, we get this efficiency through these tools. But you also lose innovation in a world where the cost of innovation is going through the floor, the rate of innovation is going up, and the time in which you have to monetize it is going down. So you leverage help, unexpected connections, you control chaos. You're able to walk into almost any situation from an innovator's mindset, an inventor's mindset, an artist's mindset, creative mindset, and look not just at what's there, but take a step back. Look at what hasn't been explored, right? Those levers. And then focus, take the time to know what's missing. So how do you build a project management culture that encourages that as a first step in the process, as opposed to how am I going to get there fastest? How am I going to hit my KPIs? Because what I know from my experience of doing special projects is moving faster at the beginning does not get you there faster, ever.
You know, we should talk about the genesis of the book, because I think that was an example of knowing what's missing. There is so much literature out there about the technology, and then how you can deploy the technology in your business. And that's all great, and people should definitely do that. But we deal so often with systemic change. I mean, I did it at the genesis of the smartphone. You've done it in a bunch of situations, of course. And this is probably the most systemic change we've ever seen in the economy. And yet people weren't talking about how this changes the nature of the way people manage organizations, the skills that they need, the way organizations interact in the economy. And ultimately, that seems to be what is really transformative. I mean, it's like when electricity came to factories, okay, we replaced the steam-powered machines with electric ones. That was cool. But electricity also enabled the assembly line, and that's what really changed things. It was the systemic change. That was the breakthrough.
It was that breakthrough. It was also, Ford going and looking at meatpacking facilities, looking at other industries and saying, hey, I can take that and I can do it here.
That's right.
That was the breakthrough. It wasn't that Ford had a new idea. It's that he took it from somewhere else. He was talking to other people. He was in other places, learning other things.
That's what we try to do with a book. We take you to a lot of places, don't we? So why did we write this book?
Because almost everything we know about how organizations organize is about to change. For the last 150 years, we have made three assumptions. One, that people aren't good enough decision makers to go and make decisions on their own. Two, they don't have context about what's going on across the organization. So even if they could, they couldn't make an effective decision that brings the organization together. The third, and perhaps the most important thing, is that they don't have the ability to understand the third order impacts of their decisions. AI turns all of those assumptions on their head.
Sure does. It also turns, I think, the assumptions of management on their head as well, right? It's not so much about figuring out the decision. It's certainly not about processing information. It's about coaching people. It's about seeing what's not in the model, not in the data. And then everybody becomes a change manager. I don't care who you are, how specialist your expertise is. There's going to be so much change. Everybody needs to have that skill set.
Everybody, this is the thing that blows my mind. In 5 years, every person in your organization, they might not be managing a single person, but they might be managing 1,000 bots, 1,000 processes. Mm-hmm. That complexity is only trusted to senior managers today. And yet your intern's going to be doing it. How do we get the benefits of artificial intelligence without changing the way we work?
That's right. So you're not so much managing just the people anymore, but you're also managing the models. What are the parameters, the guardrails in those models that make sure that somebody at the front line who's using the model, who is closest to the problem, fastest to take action, all good, but they make the right decisions because the model is organized the right way.
What I'm hearing when I'm talking to customers is we're either ahead or behind on structuring our data, getting all of the machine learning preparation that we were supposed to be doing 10 years ago into action. The interesting thing to me is right now there's this concept called vibe coding. And it is that using regular English, you can tell a computer what to do and it will write software for you. The reality is it doesn't do it well yet, but it does do it. And when we think about what's actually going on there, they're taking poorly structured data, your unstructured thought, and turning it into a list, turning it into code that gets you from A to B. It's not good yet, but man, is it making progress. What does that mean for your data? It means that AI will be better and better and better at structuring those data lakes that are complete chaos today. In the next couple of years, the challenges of being behind on the curve may go away. And that means that the strategic benefits of being large and yet not having done this work also go away because everybody is at the same place.
Look, one thing I think is certain is that the technology is going to get better at a much faster rate than the organizations are getting better at using the technology. And that disparity is just going to increase, right? Technology increases at this exponential rate, and organizations are at a very linear rate. So we may not ever be able to make organizations exponentially better, but we sure can make them better. And they need to, because they're already getting behind what the technology can do. Imagine 5 years from now. So they need to start today. They can't say, oh, that's interesting for next year's plan. This is really urgent.
When you think about what's actually going on, using metrics like what's called Humanity's Last Exam, which is this test for how good AI's outputs are. What we've seen over the last year is that the tools have improved by about 7 times. Multiply that times 5 years. Even just take a couple notches off, and you're well above the 32 times improvement. In the next year, there's another metric called ARC-AGI, which looks at abstract thinking. This is, I don't know how to solve the problem, there aren't rules, I've got to figure out the pattern and solve it, right? This is Einstein types of stuff. In the next year, it's likely, looking at the trends, the AI will be better than your average human at doing this work. What does it mean to have an intern plus AI who's significantly smarter than Einstein?
You know, I agree, right? It's about the intelligence, but it's also about things that machines can do today. They don't even need to be terribly intelligent. But because of the scale of the challenge, it's just not happening. It's not summarizing commitments that 100 people make during a keynote address on what they're going to do about a speech. But it can. And we can create function by function. What are those roadmaps? There are so many things that don't get done right now. But AI today can do them. And yet how many companies are really taking advantage of that today? Not nearly enough.
That you just blew my head, because I give keynote speeches all the time. What if this was suddenly a two-way conversation that led into a project plan? Like, what if I could get 1,000 people in a room and not just inspire them and inform them, but actually walk away with KPIs? CEOs would love that. What we're talking about here is how many new opportunities open up. I think there's this discussion about what happens if we create AI gods, right? Things that are smarter than humans, and those are exciting, right? The second thing that happens is that we talk about what happens if we remove labor from the workforce, right? What happens is if we have AI workers. That's exciting and terrifying and otherwise. What I think gets missed is all of those things we won't do today because they're too hard, they're too expensive, they're too fatiguing, right? What would happen if those things that today cost $500 an hour for an attorney so you don't do them cost 40 cents an hour? What would you do? What would happen if every medical diagnosis that requires an expert at hundreds of dollars an hour cost $1? Right? These are the shifts that we're talking about. Will they be as good as that surgeon? Will they be as good as that lawyer? Maybe, maybe not. But at 40 cents or 50 cents, maybe it's worth a lot more shots on goal.
You know, one thing we should talk about is how AI doesn't just reorganize what happens within a company, but how it transforms the nature of interactions between companies.
Yeah.
So, we write in the book that we've thought since back in 1937, when the theory of the firm was created in economics, that there is just a natural size for firms because it is a lot cheaper to do something, easier to do something inside a company than externally. Because it's so hard to move information around. But with AI, that totally changes, right? You can move information around to a company in Singapore as easily to the one next door. So what does that do to the economy and to who can win in really having a competitive advantage in the economy?
I've been talking with a lot of firms that are in professional services about this, and there's an upheaval that's about to happen because you see these senior litigators, for instance, who are going out on their own and saying, hey, me plus a couple of associates and all of these tools can do the research. I don't need the paralegals anymore. And we can do big, hairy litigation, right? IP litigation without the firm. We're also seeing large firms consolidate. We had, I think, 30 law firms merged in the last, in the first half of this year. So scaling up is another strategy for dealing with this. We're going to see two things happen here, right? Two bets. One is that if you're large enough, you can build your own platform, your own technology platform. The other, which we've never seen before, is that if you are small, you can sit on top of a technology platform, much like a franchisee, much like a McDonald's franchisee does today, and have the same power as a large organization. This is a stunning breakthrough for services organizations where in knowledge work, this has never really landed before.
100% agree. So we have a boutique firm, of course, and I can now do things with our firm which we could never do before. So we can have a workshop with a client and we might have 20 different ideas. This actually happened recently for consumer healthcare devices. And we sort of describe them in paragraphs, had a rough idea. And overnight, we could get mock-ups of what a schematic would look like from an engineering perspective, what the bill of materials, the manufacturing cost would be, what it would look like being used by a consumer, and even regulatory analysis of how these would be treated in 12 different countries. Now, when I was at one of the largest strategy firms, yeah, okay, if we really pressed our resources, we might be able to get that done in 2 weeks. But in our firm of 15 people, doing that overnight is phenomenal. So, yes, it completely changes the competitive dynamics.
I think it does two interesting things in terms of labor. One is it allows people at our stage in the career to do things without large labor forces. On the flip side, it allows people who would traditionally be much more junior to work with AI tools that up-level their decision-making, up-level their account management capabilities, up-level their ability to think through these challenges, to prompt them to act like a mentor without a mentor. And this, I think, is going to be the big breakthrough, that we see these tools, they're not quite there yet, but in many cases they have better bedside manner than doctors. I mean, that might say something about my doctor, but this is a phenomenal thing. They've absorbed every framework, every way of working, every way of looking at problems that's ever been published. And that's going to be available to your 18-year-old.
There's been two schools of thought in studies about what AI does to the workforce. So the one school is that it makes every mediocre person or inexperienced person sort of decent. And then the other school is that it makes these hyper performers super duper productive.
Right.
And the reality is it does both, right? So whereas the relationship between output and capability was sort of linear, now the shape of that curve has changed, right? So you can have a little bit of capability and decent level of output, and it sort of stays constant. But then when you get to the top of the curve, it skyrockets. And ironically, it's the things that make the output skyrocket are exactly the things that people fear are getting eaten away by AI. The critical thinking skills, the ability to say, not what am I seeing, but what's missing, what's not there. If you can bring that to a suite of AI tools, man, you have superpowers.
Or if you can teach the AI, we've because of how we think as a species, we've tried to make this pet that answers our questions, right? Instead of this pet that asks us questions. The thing is that it is really good if you ask it to help you work through a diagnostic problem, guiding you through that process. And so this is the fascinating bit for me, is that mid-level performer plus the right prompts that you don't have time for as a leader. Now, a high performer. This is a shift in mindset, right? A shift in ways of working that's incredibly powerful. What happens when everybody has a coach 40 hours a week instead of in your 30-minute one-on-one?
We use this in consulting. We put in our presentations and we say, what could go wrong? What are all the things we haven't thought about, the risks we haven't taken account of? Sometimes we're pretty good, but sometimes there are things that we have not thought about. And so, yes, we need to approach AI with a sense of humility. Sure, it's going to be worse than us in counting the number of R's in Blueberry. It's at 3, by the way. There's 1 in blue. But then there's also things that never occurred to us.
R's in Blueberry? There's 3 R's?
Well, that's what AI said.
There's 1 in blue.
It said there was 1 in blue.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So, I mean, not to my eyes, right? But to AI's eyes, okay, it sees some weird stuff in the word blue, but it also sees something in my 50-slide deck that I hadn't thought about. So we need to be humble that it's not better or worse than us. It's different. And that's phenomenal to have somebody who's different on our project team to come as this person from ours and look at things with an utterly alien point of view.
And you can ask it to take on different points of view. And what we're finding in decision making is when you actually have a number of agents playing different roles. One's the devil's advocate, one's the Socratic reasoner, so on and so forth, right? One's the Bayesian probabilistic person, one's the dreamer. When you put those archetypes into ask AI to play with those archetypes, actually what you get are pretty phenomenal results. We just need to think about it sometimes a little bit differently. So I was talking with a chief risk officer just this morning, and he was talking about how he's using it, and he says, well, you've really still got to think through the problem yourself. And I completely agree with you on that your job as a leader is to set the frame, not to let your people set the frame. And often they have a better frame, and you should take that one, but don't let your people set the frame. That's the first rule, right? AI is so persuasive that it's really easy for cognitive sloth to come in and set the frame for you. But on the flip side, it can give you 5 different ways of thinking about the same problem, deeply researched, so on and so forth. Maybe not perfect, maybe not good, but probably better than your intern.
Indeed.
I can't wait to see you at the end of the book.
All right, how are
I
you?
think we're good. We're at a minute left.
Okay, we're
that's-
good.
We're good.
All right.
All right. Thank you for the patience.
Yeah, no problem.
All right.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.